And that weird video issue again, apparently.
You are recording and streaming, so whenever you're ready.
Video issue again, apparently. All right, it is 6:30. Welcome everyone to this work session of the South Kingstown Town Council. The date is Tuesday, June 29th. As I said, it's 6:30. Tonight, our work session is to focus more on the supplementary budget process for the American Rescue Plan funds. Before we get to that, item 1 on our agenda is the pledge to the flag. Susan, if you wouldn't mind.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, and as I just mentioned, item 2 on the agenda tonight is discussion regarding American Rescue Plan's Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund with human service and outside agencies. Following our first work session, we've solicited applications from local agencies. I forget how many exactly we've received, but hopefully we'll be hearing from all those applicants tonight. I think as we look at these, tonight is just a work session. We're obviously not making any decisions, but it's good to see, what this line item in the supplementary budget could go towards as we think ahead. And so one thing, we want to consider is we've gotten requests for a lot more funding than we had sort of carved out for this piece. Do we want to expand how much we had carved out for this particular part, the outside agencies, or do we want to stick with where we are and really pare down these sort of grant amounts? All right, with that being said, Terry, do you want to set the groundwork?
Sure. Thank you, Council President Collins. What I'd like to do is very quickly go through the same presentation that kind of sets the stage for a little background on the American Rescue Plan funds for South Kingstown. I want to thank our planning director, Jamie, for putting this slide deck together and just give you a little recap similar to last work session, and then you can move forward with hearing from the agencies that have submitted and potentially any others that may be attending this evening. So to start off, just as a background, the American Rescue Plan Act is a $1.9 trillion funding program in response to COVID-19 pandemic through the Department of the Treasury, and part of that contains $350 billion related to local and state and local recovery funds. As you can see, that is the second largest kind of chunk of funding of that $1.9 million, with the only larger funds going towards the $1,400 household checks that were sent out earlier in the year. So that's where this funding is coming from. In terms of what South Kingstown will receive, we have two different buckets of funding. One is the non-entitlement aid to municipalities. The town will receive $3 million from that particular account. And then there's also county-based aid to municipalities, and we will receive $5.95 million. So just under $9 million will be coming to South Kingstown. And the distribution of those funds will occur over the course of the next year. We have done an initial application for $1.5 million, which is the first. It's the 50% of the non-entitlement aid to municipalities, and we anticipate receiving that from the state within the next couple of weeks. So just as a background, again, I think it's important to remember that these funds have to fall under 4 different eligible use categories, and as part of the regulations, These broad-based categories are: one, to respond to COVID-19 or its negative impacts on the economy, households, small businesses, nonprofits, aid to impacted industries, tourism, travel, hospitality. The second one is premium pay to eligible workers. The third eligible category is provision of government services to respond to COVID-19 and the public health emergency. And the fourth one is making necessary infrastructure improvements related to water, sewer, and broadband. So those are the very broad categories for eligibility for this funding. So for us, what does that mean? We have a few different categories here, and most of these we touched upon in the first work session: economic development, providing aid to small businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19 and have had a negative effect on the economy. Tourism and travel industry, of course, that relates very closely to South Kingstown, to try to speed up the recovery for this area. Tonight, we're focusing on community grants, and that is exactly what it means. It's serving organizations that have some social service programs for populations in our community that might be vulnerable or have unmet needs, particularly when it comes to how COVID-19 has impacted those populations. So that's really what we're looking at this evening for the majority of these funding proposals. Utility infrastructure, again, that focuses on water, sewer, some broadband. Organizational needs, as you heard in the previous work session, that is focused on needs within the town or town departments, or paying essential employees, or building up the human resource infrastructure to respond to the COVID-19 impact. And finally, that last category is broadband infrastructure. So those are really what we are looking at when we're talking about eligible uses. And this evening, we're focusing primarily on community grants. And as far as ineligible uses are concerned, we cannot use funding to offset tax revenue, and we cannot use funding for pension fund deposits. So those are pretty clearly stated and well defined. In terms of a little bit of background on how we got to where we are in presenting at the first work session, we had our municipal leadership team come together and really develop a whole list of projects, initiatives that could potentially fall under eligibility for the funding through the American Rescue Plan. The town also reached out to EDC to provide some feedback in terms of projects that maybe could be eligible for some of this funding as well. And in terms of how we went through the project development, bear in mind, initially, we did not have the full regulatory scope of the American Rescue Plan Act at our disposal. So the initial development of these projects and funding recommendations were to focus on uses associated with COVID-19 economic impacts. And I would stress that these are important because any funding that is dispersed by the town to, whether it's for town initiatives or for nonprofits, social services, there has to be a link and a connect to an impact that was caused or exacerbated by the pandemic, and that there's a strong presumption that COVID exacerbated negative economic and health conditions among, in particular, low-income and socially vulnerable communities. So it's important to keep that at front of mind as you begin to listen to some of the proposals that you will hear tonight. And on the flip side of that, for organizations who have submitted proposals, that this really needs to be really the crux of how they intend to use funds that they're requesting. And in terms of infrastructure projects, it's pretty straightforward. It needs to be related to water, sewer, or broadband, and does it have resiliency? So those are really the basis for the project development. We had preliminary recommendations from staff that totaled, of course, we could have probably hit the $100 million mark, but we were at 37 million to begin with, and then the staff began to pare down based on further review of the regulatory requirements for this funding. And we ranked projects 1 and 2, and then managed to pare it down to the $9 million mark. And included in that, as you saw in the first work session, was a recommendation for funding for some nonprofits. So bear that in mind. Council President Collins mentioned it at the beginning of this session that there is certainly some funding that's already been recommended to be put aside, but not nearly at the amount that you see here this evening from all of the organizations that have submitted initial preliminary proposals. So again, we used the evaluation criteria that basically said, was the impact caused or exacerbated by COVID-19, and how will the proposals or the initiatives that you see tonight fix that or help to recover from COVID-19? And then just how did we get here? We've gone through that. The staff recommendations, we set up categories for that, the different initiatives. We just saw this one. We've got, I'm sorry, let me just get to my correct slide here. Okay. 3 separate categories. One would be $7.4 million for to address negative economic impacts associated with small businesses, tourism and travel, including village revitalization, with 2 subcategories that included municipal investment programs at $5 million, and then private sector investment programs, which included matching grants at $2.4 million. The next kind of bucket would have been to respond to negative economic impacts associated with household and nonprofits. And here is where we defined 2 different funding sources: $300,000 assigned to low and mod income, and $100,000 for the elderly services. And I think that was related to mostly home repair programs. And then finally, we had the delivery of government services and nonprofits impacted by COVID-19. And here you see the 1.2 million with municipal investment at 955,000. And we detailed that at the first work session. And then municipal investments to nonprofits totaling 300,000. And that one was for childcare, and the other, let me just check, that was 200,000 for nonprofits that service low mod income. And then the Plan B is a fallback primarily for water, sewer, broadband projects. If the council decides for whatever reason that sewer and broadband are a higher priority, then there's certainly projects that could be identified, that have been identified, that would eat up all of that funding that is coming through the American Rescue Plan Act. Okay, so we did develop a page on the town website where we promoted the work sessions and advertised for nonprofits and organizations to submit proposals for consideration for funding through the $9 million of American Rescue Plan funds. We've had several, I believe it's 14 applications from organizations, and then there were 2 citizen recommendations as well. So we did get a very good response. At this point, We are now having these organizations available this evening, if they are here, to essentially provide a brief detail on what their proposals are. What I would ask the council to keep in mind is that this is the very first preliminary round of this. You're not making any funding decisions this evening. It's your opportunity to listen, to ask questions, and keep in mind the justification and the eligibility criteria for these plans, because it will be the municipality's responsibility to do the reporting, the regulatory reporting on any money that is authorized through this plan. And the three-pronged justification is really, what is the harm, what was the impact, and how is the initiative going to fix or address the harm caused by COVID-19. So that's what I would suggest you bear in mind as you hear these proposals. And I think Jamie wanted to add.
All right, Jamie.
President Collins, just as a quick update, as of 5 o'clock this evening, we were up to 20 responses from the online process, 18 nonprofits/agencies and 2 citizens comments. So it was evolving throughout the day.
All right. Yeah, clearly, folks, probably we might still see some more applications come in even following this meeting. I wouldn't be too surprised. And in terms of our process, we still have until the 26th when we'll be considering this budget. So should we advise people that we will continue to accept these applications, or how do we want to deal with that?
Are you asking me or your council? I'm sorry.
I think it's mostly a question for the council. I guess I would take recommendations from staff, of course. Councilwoman Kelso?
So I think we should continue to accept applications. I see no need to cut them off. We can hear the folks we'll have a public hearing on the 26th. And if we need to continue it after that, we can. So I think there's still plenty of time for nonprofits to chime in.
Councilwoman Rose.
So I agree. I don't think there's any reason to cut it off just yet. So would the 26th be the date, or were you, Councilwoman Kelso, are you suggesting that we could go past that? I just want to, I'm fine with it either way. I don't think that this is something that we should rush.
I would think 26 should be the cutoff date.
Okay.
We have to, make a decision at some point. So
right.
We should accept them up until that point, and then go forth from there.
I would just note that probably we should choose the Wednesday before the meeting date, just so that we can post to the agenda with an item that links to all the applications.
I wholeheartedly agree. You're absolutely correct. Thank you for that.
Okay, I saw a bunch of hands up and now they're all gone, I assume. So I think that date would be the 21st, the Wednesday before the 26th. I'm doing my math right. No, maybe not. The 22nd. Anyway, that Wednesday, whatever it happens to be.
23rd.
And then, one other question, Terry. I think that some of these applications are, dealing with issues that might already be covered by some of the other places we've sort of looked at for putting funding through the ARP. So at some point we should try to have an idea of, what percentage of some of these proposals will actually be eligible for funding from other ARP designated line items.
That's correct. As I said earlier, that you have already seen some recommendations for nonprofit grant funding in that particular bucket, so to speak, for the South Kingstown funds. What I would just recommend is that the council may want to keep in mind that what you're doing at this point is really needing to identify an amount that you would consider placing under nonprofit agencies. And then what would effectively happen is that a more formalized application process would then be put in place once the budget is set, once you've identified your number, that would be much more detailed in terms of what would be asked of the applicants, in terms of whether or not there's other funding that's been received, whether or not the applicant serves other communities as well as the South Kingstown community. All of those items will come into play in a much more formalized application process.
Councilwoman Bergen?
Thank you, Abel. It's July 21st is that Wednesday. I heard a different day, but it's that day. But I had a question, I guess, maybe for Terry about the funds again. Some of the proposals deal with children, school-age children, and they're more, educational and mental health supports for children. So is that something that the grants that the schools could use? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, these are a great diversity of programs and ideas. And, had we have 25 million, I'd be like, great, we can do so much. So, but are there places that we could shift to the schools, to make up the gaps from the COVID learning or the social emotional health issues?
So that comes under the evaluation process, so that when an organization would apply, those are the types of questions that are, I think, legitimate to ask in terms of where else has this organization applied. Also, during the evaluation process, staff will need to look at what other funding sources have been made available. When you saw that pie chart on one of the first slides, you'll notice that there was funding for childcare, there was funding for restaurants and businesses, veterans, reopening schools and higher education. So there's a variety of sources that organizations, individuals can look to. So that's something that we will take under consideration in terms of the evaluation process for these organizations, because I think the schools are getting funding as well. So there may be some overlap in terms of what's available and where is the most appropriate source of funding, depending on what the initiative might be.
Councilman McAdoo.
Hi, Terry. Would you like us to identify the amount of appropriation to outside agencies tonight? Or is this something that, after hearing the applicants present to us, we could give you an idea at the first meeting in July? So that way we have your final recommendation at the second meeting in July?
So no, we don't want a recommendation this evening. There needs to be time for the council to process what you're hearing this evening, and for also staff to be able to go through each proposal and set up a kind of an evaluation criteria. And then my intention is to be able to provide the council with something at the interim report, so that you will have an idea of what some of your options would be in terms of the amounts of funding for the nonprofits. And then the council can make that decision July 26th at the public hearing, if that's if that's what you'd like to do, or if the public hearing needs to be continued, it can be continued. There is time to be able to have that discussion further if necessary.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, great. I guess at this point, maybe we should just start listening to some of these proposals. We have 20 attendees, and I'm guessing most of these folks are here to represent an organization. I don't know if you have a list that you just want to sort of go down and call people in order, maybe, Terry? I don't know.
We do have it's basically an alphabetized list of the organizations that have submitted proposals. If council's okay with running down the list in that order, I can certainly
Works for me.
get that going. So the first organization on the list is the Boys and Girls Club of Newport County.
Councilman Bergner, you had a question?
Just for housekeeping, I guess, if 20 presentations, everyone took 10 minutes, we would be at 200 minutes. So that's 3 more hours. I'm just trying to think about like what would be realistic, reasonable for this setting. Is it maybe a 5-minute to see? I mean, we didn't really give them any parameters, but it might be helpful to sort of think that way so that we don't go to midnight.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think let's start out with a 5-minute time frame, and then 5-minute presentation. Then if we have a couple minutes of questions, if there are questions that come up from us, but not extensive questioning, I think, and then see if that works. If it turns out that we're flying through with 5 minutes, then we can consider extending it for people who need longer. All right, but yeah, let's start with the Boys and Girls Club, and I'll put a 5-minute timer on to start.
Okay, Kelly Cohen is the applicant on this proposal. I don't see that name in our participant list. If there's someone here from the Boys and Girls Club, if they could raise their hand.
President Collins, would you like me to stop screen sharing so that everyone can see the?
Yeah, that would be great. And also, I don't know if were any people planning on bringing their own presentations, like slideshows or anything like that?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
Nor am I.
Okay, well, I don't see anyone just yet from the Boys and Girls Club. I guess we'll go to the next on the list.
Okay, the next is the Kane Child Development Center, and that is Lisa DiCarlo, the director. I am not seeing her on this list either. So if someone is here to speak on behalf, they can raise their hand. Next on the list is the Chris Collins Foundation. And we have Mark Collins, who is here, if we want to bring Mark in.
All right, Mark, you just need to unmute yourself. Click on that one. There you go. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. I appreciate you taking the time to hear some of these proposals. So the Chris Collins Foundation is named after my 20-year-old son who died about 3 years ago after battling depression and anxiety, died by suicide. And we started the foundation to bring youth-led programs to the schools. We felt that, and it's been shown that when the students are leading a program and sharing it with their peers, it's more effective than if they were receiving mental health information, say in health class a couple times a year. So we've had the program in the South Kingstown High School for the last 3 years, and it's been extremely successful. the program, the peer-to-peer program, comes from the University of Michigan Depression Center, which started the program more than 10 years ago and has won national awards for the program. And it's evidence-driven that it works well in reducing stigma, raising awareness. There are surveys done at the beginning and the end of each school year that show that the students are more likely and able to recognize when either they or some of their peers might be suffering from depression or anxiety or another type of mental illness. And they're able to help to recommend, counselors that are help seeking for that individual. They're more likely to, if they have suicidal ideations or know that a friend does, to, instead of keeping a secret, to seek out an adult. So anyway, obviously, prior to the pandemic, we all know that mental health and mental illness was a big problem. Washington County has the highest rates of suicide in the state. And with the pandemic and the isolation, obviously that was negatively affected. And at the same time, our fundraising abilities was negatively affected. So our program became even more important and needed, but the funds to pay for it were tough to raise. So what we're asking for, obviously, is money through the program to help to continue this program and actually expand it into Curtis Corner Middle School and also expand it community-wide. What we basically like to do is take the same premise that is working so well in the schools and to have the students bring it outside of the schools into the community, to be run basically across the community, whether that be with mental health first aid trainings, QPR trainings, guest speakers, different events, so that on an ongoing basis, the topics of mental health and mental illness are a continuing part of the conversation across the community, focusing in the schools, but spreading across the community.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Questions for Mark? Councilwoman Rose?
Thank you so much for your presentation, for letting us know what this is all about. The only question that I have is, and I've probably asked this of everybody, is there a place where people can donate to the foundation right now?
Yes, we have obviously a website and social media pages, and people can donate through the website. They could also donate by sending a check to our post office box.
Thank you. And I asked because there are people from the community watching, so maybe to help raise some awareness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mark? All right, I want to thank you, Mark, for coming tonight and for
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
And keeping the presentation well within our 5-minute time frame. That was very kind of you. We will be letting you know as we go through this whole process. As you heard Terry say, as we move forward, it's going to probably be a lot more involved in terms of the application. But it's great to sort of get a feel for the needs in the community that are out there. And thank you for being part of that.
Thank you.
And have a good night.
So next on the list is Christopher Simpson from the Contemporary Theater Company. I don't see Chris in the participant list, so we will move to the next. And that is the Mary Rhoda from the Domestic Violence Resource Center of South County. Mary here?
I did see her.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Mary.
Yay, amen. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I know it's a really hot night. So we have submitted as the Domestic Violence Resource Center 2 applications, and we are also hosting an application with the Washington County Coalition for the Children. So before I go into specifics, I just wanted to really encourage you. There are so many worthwhile organizations asking for money and so many wonderful programs that will benefit our community. But homelessness is such a challenge in all of Washington County and in Wakefield. And the health of our children is really such a priority for us to make a community change and a cultural change. So I ask that you really consider that with all of the applications that come through. So specific to us, we did ask for 2 different applications. Your home is supposed to be your safe haven, but to victims of domestic violence, and particularly through this pandemic, it has not been true. So now that the moratorium on rental properties is going to be eliminated, we're really facing a challenge with the victims, and I'm just going to say women. We know that men are victims as well, but we know that most victims are women. So that the victims who have not had the opportunity to call for help or reach out to us by phone or virtually because their abuser has been home 24/7 through losing their jobs, through whatever caused that in the pandemic, they are now reaching out to us. So when their family is moved due to the moratorium being lifted or the sale of the property that they rented, we are seeing a real increase in people wanting housing from us. And we have a bottleneck at our safe home. We are not able to move people out of our safe home into safe, affordable housing for the next continuum of their safe journey. And therefore, we're not able to bring other people into our safe home. So we've asked for money for several things in this first proposal. One is for first and last rent to help people move out of our safe home into a rental property. And we looked at that if our safe home program is working the way it should, every 90 days, 4 people will move out of our safe home. So we've asked for first and last rent assistance for 10 people. And we've asked that for 1 year because I wasn't sure how long you wanted to go forward with proposals in this, extending this grant. We also asked for, which was very successful during the pandemic, we were able to put 10 rooms, whether they were individuals or they were families, at a hotel. They gave us a discount and we were able to house people safely in a hotel. So we've asked for some assistance in housing people in hotels for up to 21 days. And we think that that's time that we would be able to work with them and try to be able to find them another place to go. In addition, because of what has happened to the children who have witnessed all the violence at home through staying home, virtual learning, not being able to go out, we recognize that the impact is even more dramatic than it has been in the past. So we're asking for just 2 hours a week for expressive art therapy for 2 different age groups of kids that come to us. And we're also asking for a part-time 4-hour-a-week counselor to work with the women. So that's our first ask. And our second ask is, I hope I didn't really hear correctly that there's only 1.2 million for nonprofits, because I'm asking for 1.15 million for a new safe home. Our safe home is too small. We don't have room. We can't give people a safe place to go because throughout the state of Rhode Island and our neighboring states, there are no available safe home rooms. And as soon as one is vacated, it's filled. So really, to this community, we need to find another safe home where we could ideally put simply just individual women, because in our safe homes, sometimes we mix families, never the same bedrooms, but we fix in our congregate living areas. a family, and then we have single women. And usually the conflicts that occur are because of differences in how children are being treated. So we are asking for assistance in finding in our community under environmental and finding a better community in which to live. We would like to offer another safe home, and we would like to offer more services to our transitional people. So I encourage you to think of not just specifically domestic violence, but homelessness, is such a challenge, and our children are our future, and they're damaged and they need our help. And I hope that you find the money to invest in our children. So thank you very much. And can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Mary. Question from Councilwoman Rowe.
Thanks so much, Mary. I'm going to ask the same question for people who are in the audience or who might be watching this later. If people wanted to make a donation, where would they do that right now?
They could stop by 61 Main Street and bring a check or bring cash, or they can go online to www.dbrcsc.org and make a donation. I just also want to mention that we do not charge for any of our services. We are totally funded by state, federal, and local funding and private fundraising, and the community has really extended themselves to support us. We now raise 1/3 of our budget when 10 years ago we used to raise just 1/4 of our budget. So I applaud the community, and yes, please, 61 Main Street, or come in person, or our website.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mary? Just one from me. I know, or I believe that your service area is broader than South Kingstown. You're probably drawing in people throughout Washington County. Have you asked other neighboring towns? I really don't know what process they're going through with their ARP money, but hopefully they would also be making money available to nonprofits in the region. Have you looked into that?
Abel, we are on top of contributing ideas through the Rhode Island Foundation for the state money, but we have not been given this opportunity by any other community, but we will pursue anything we can because we serve all of Washington County.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Right.
Next on the list is Galilee Mission. Lynn Sarah. If Lynn is here. I don't see her, so we'll skip to the next one.
Harry, I think you skipped the education exchange.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I? I did. I'm sorry. Jason Colonies, the Education Exchange. My apologies.
All right, Jason, you've been brought in. You just need to unmute yourself. You want to be seen, you can click that little, there you go.
Am we good? Do we hear me?
We can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. Jason Colonies, the Education Exchange. I'm very familiar with the CARES Act, and the American Recovery Act seems to be pretty much almost the same regulations. What I put in was a proposal, and I'll be very short with you. Short in a positive way, not in a negative way, of course. What I put in was a proposal to service specifically South Kingstown restaurants. Now, we do lots of training programs at the Education Exchange for essential skills for hospitality, but there's COVID really affected the restaurant industry pretty harshly. And what I'm suggesting is that we could go out to our restaurants in South Kingstown mobily and give some incumbent trainer trainings to them so that we can update all of their ServSafe licenses. Everybody has to be ServSafe certified in alcohol, kitchen manager, food allergen, and food safety. Food handler are very common as well. And sometimes restaurants pay for those certifications. And obviously they can't really afford that now. So what I'm proposing is we go out to these restaurants and give them, say we have 30 restaurants in town. That's 30 people working for each restaurant. Let's give them 3 of the main certifications. Kitchen managers is hard to do mobily and is expensive. So we could give like 1 of that one to each restaurant. And then the main less expensive ones we could give to each restaurant. And that would just update them all, get them ready for the next 3 to 5 years, not let them have to worry about any of those certifications. It's easy to do, it's quick, and I assume this money has to be spent by the end of the year. That's my assumption, but it might get extended beyond that, but we could do that throughout the year and get to all of our South Kingstown restaurants. That's my proposal. It's pretty simple, it's pretty quick. And I think it would be valuable to the local restaurant industry.
Thank you, Jason. Questions for Jason? Councilwoman Rose.
Same question. If people wanted to donate to the Education Exchange.
I should have anticipated that. I'm so sorry that I did not.
That's I know some people have a little bit of extra money right now, and I think if they could help out in this way, it would be great. So if you could just fill us in, thank you.
They can visit our website, www.edexri.org. There is a donate button on there. They can call us 401-783-0293 and speak to anyone at our organization. So, and all of our services are free, as free as we can try and make them. The only thing that we charge for is our teacher assistant program, and that is just to keep that one running. So.
Any other questions? Great. All right, Jason, thank you for coming. And as you said, or as I mentioned before, this is going to be a little bit of a process, but definitely thank you for raising this to our attention.
Thank you for having me.
Good night.
And next is a Galilee Mission. I'm just going to ask one more time if Lynn Sarah is in the participant list.
Yeah, and maybe if you want to, every once in a while, just bring up the list of organizations that we've called before to see if anybody's joined who might be representing them. That would be good.
Okay. Next is the Johnny Cake Center, and Kate Brewster is here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thanks for having us all tonight and allowing us to submit a proposal. And I want to thank you for all the support that we received as we worked to respond to the COVID crisis the last 16 months. As you all know, we have provided food deliveries, upwards of $100,000 in financial assistance to folks who were struggling, and we continue to do that. Of course, the housing piece and the housing crisis continues to really be at the forefront of our members' needs. COVID has certainly exacerbated this, and I don't think that's any secret in town. People are selling their homes at alarming rates. The prices are skyrocketing, and of course, that's trickling down to the rental market. And in fact, we hired a realtor part-time to help our folks locate housing over the past couple of months, and she is tracking rental prices right now. And the last 6 3-bedrooms that came up online averaged rents of about $2,600 a month for a 3-bedroom, which is just insane. Someone with a housing choice voucher right now who can rent a 3-bedroom is allowed to spend $1,800. So clearly the folks who are at the very bottom of the economic scale, folks in our town who have housing vouchers, are completely priced out of the market. As you might know, we took over, or we purchased 4 multi-unit dwellings from the Welcome House over the past 6 months. At the end of the day, those buildings will house 8 units, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom units that will be for families with children in our school system. We also intend to convert our offices above our thrift store into another apartment, trying to get as much as we can out of our real estate. And we hope that by the time everything is renovated, we'll have 40 to 50 children. We might have the capacity for that living under our roof. So very simply, our proposal is for $250,000 to help with the renovation of those properties. We have done some preliminary capital improvement assessments, which total just under $600,000. And we thought that asking for $250,000 seemed reasonable, given that we will be adding several important, larger affordable housing units to the town stock for our lowest income families. I know that we hear about affordable housing being a challenge for teachers and nurses. Folks we're talking about are the teachers' assistants and the CNAs, and we see them getting priced out of SK every single day, and it's tragic. So that's our proposal. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you want to donate to us, you can always go to our website at johnnycakecenter.org. There's no H in Johnny, or stop by our facility. So thank you again for allowing us to submit.
Thank you, Kate. Questions for Johnny Cake Center? All right, that was very straightforward, Kate. I think we will look forward to hearing more as this process goes on. Clearly, there are a lot of needs in town, and we'll do what we can.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, Nessa Richmond. I don't see her, but just in case. We'll come back. She comes later. Next, we have the South County History Center, Erica Luke. And I see Erica.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting the South County History Center to submit an application. For those of you who don't know us, we were formerly the Pettaquamscut Historical Society. Our organization was founded in 1958, and we're located in the old Washington County Jail, which is why I have this weird background. We do a lot with local educators. We do public programs, exhibits, walking tours. We work with researchers across the country to try to get more and more people interested and engaged in our local history, and to help people see how it fits in with the larger national context. So we believe that the town's history is really an underutilized economic resource. And so our proposal is really kind of focused on using the history of the community to stimulate economic activity, support village revitalization, to help increase tourism, and to promote a sense of place, which is just so important, especially now that we have an influx of new residents from other places. And also, it seems an influx in out-of-town visitors who maybe aren't familiar with our community. So these projects, they also will help perhaps lay some of the groundwork for the town's tricentennial celebrations, which will be coming up. So the first proposed project is a series of outdoor interpretive signs. You've probably seen signs like this at national park sites, at other historic sites, in Rhode Island and across the country. We think that these signs will help create memorable and authentic educational experiences, fun educational experiences for residents and visitors. Creating these signs will complement the town's other efforts to improve streetscapes and wayfinding, and they will also help build inclusion into placemaking. So we suggested a few potential sites for some of these signs, such as the George Fairweather II house here in Kingston, which is also known as the Fairweather Craft Guild. Family has such a fascinating history. Their involvement with the abolitionist movement, and Frederick Douglass visited the house, and things like that are just not parts of our history that are known and celebrated. We also have the Saugatucket River Park, which we've been working to provide information for the Economic Development Commission on the park's history, including we recently found documentation that was actually purchased by generous donations from members of the community, made it possible to actually purchase the land. And so again, celebrating history like that helps to engage people, feel a sense of ownership, and understand that everyone has a place in our community. So the expected lifespan of these signs are about 10 years. You can do all different sizes. You can have small ones that are just on individual buildings. You can have larger ones, such as those in the photographs in our proposal. You can do signage that would go like on the railings, perhaps in Wakefield at the river, things like that. We are suggesting focusing on the villages of Wakefield, Peacedale, and Kingston, as those are the areas with the most foot traffic. And we're recommending a minimum budget of $15,000, and that would help us to do signs in each of the villages. The second project that we are proposing is to help with the creation of the design standards for commercial districts and the potential facade improvement grants that the town council is considering. We're presently working with the Historic District Commission, but we've received funding actually from the 1772 Foundation to compile a historical photographic survey of the village of Kingston. That survey will help the Historic District Commission as it considers new changes to the ordinances. It will help the individual property owners as they're looking at making changes to their property. We're suggesting a similar type of photo study for the villages of Wakefield and Peacedale. We found that using historic photos, they really do encourage property owners to make more investment in their facades. And again, to include some of that history, more of the history, to celebrate it and to not, do things like tear down buildings that we all know and love. We also have found with some of these photographs that they can really serve as an inspiration for, considerations of other changes to ordinances. I included a photograph of Wakefield. If you look at photographs of Wakefield from, pre-1980, the painted signs on buildings and just generally the signs are just absolutely fabulous. And, things like that, I think, can help us all to think a little bit more broadly about where our community has come from and how we got here and where we want to go. We have our website, southcountyhistorycenter.org, where people can make a donation. They can also view our new exhibit on the former, the post office mural from the Wakefield Post Office. That is online there now too.
Thank you, Erica. Councilwoman Berger?
I'm really interested in this proposal, but I wasn't able, I don't know if anyone else is having trouble with the PDF link in the application. I couldn't open it. So when you're referencing your sign design and things like that, it goes to like a broken link. I don't know, does anyone have that link?
I also had trouble with.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think, we have many proposals and a variety of emails, and we have all these screens open, and I kept trying to look to follow along with you, and it's not there. So, but I also think I had an interesting conversation with the Kingston Improvement Association, and I think there's some collaboration and overlap that we need to, take a higher viewpoint on some of these projects. And I think we were sort of brainstorming about a walking tour and have people, have it on an app or something that people could then, explore the village of Kingston differently. So we can't open that. I can't open it. So I guess we'll have to fix that. But I think it's really interesting. And I think it does, your proposal dovetails nicely with some of the things that we were talking about on the first night. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go ahead and I'll email this proposal out so that hopefully it works as an attachment to the email.
Thank you.
Terry, I guess my question is for you, actually. So, as Erica mentioned, a number of these ideas are sort of already part of the other sort of ARP presentation, you know, with the wayfinding signage that we were contemplating in sort of our village centers as part of the, you know, economic development theme. So when those, you know, monies are available for the town side, are they flexible enough that they could actually be used to, you know, employ the historic society to help in those efforts, or how? Jamie,
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. There's definitely overlap in some of these applications where there has already been identified a broader scope of a similar initiative. And you saw that in the, you know, the village revitalization plan that Jamie Rabbit had presented at the first work session. So I would say where some of these proposals like this one touch another initiative, that there's certainly the option for the council to say, you know, we want to consider this, and we will be trying to allocate these proposals into the various categories that we've set up. Not all of them might fall into the community service grant or nonprofit grant category, but more into a previously established program that's already been presented to the council.
Councilwoman Bergner, is your hand up again? Okay. All right, Erica, thank you for your submission. We will keep you informed as we move along with this process.
Thank you.
Next on the list is the South Kingstown Housing Authority, and Chris Little is here to present on that.
So I think I'm on right now. Thank you. And thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and to submit a proposal. So you know what we do, and our message is not new. When we entered COVID, most of us who were new to the organization in some respects inherited properties that were dilapidated and are dilapidated, and very few services being provided to the members of our community, which at Champaign Heights alone has over 120 children who are participants in our schools and who need to be provided with supports to grow and fulfill their potential. With COVID and the lockdown and the absence of programs and the absence of supports, our conditions only became substantially worse. The board was fortunate that we were able to attract an interim manager and an interim CEO and a very strong new CEO in the midst of COVID to try to remedy some of the issues that we could remedy, such as to address issues such as that face you every day in terms that could be as much as just trash, and to address with support of the faith community in South Kingstown and Narragansett issues such as our playgrounds, which are dilapidated. And we were fortunate to have programs that wanted to come on and help provide support for our children. Johnny Cake was, of course, at the fore. We also had Tides Family Services, a number of church-based communities, the South Kingstown Police Department. We've been blessed by people who want to try to help provide supports for our community. But we're still confronted with the main issue that where do they provide the supports when we have no facilities? We have a very small conference room on top of the old administration building. And we have people in housing, which we believe when we get the results of our survey, which is being done by LLB Architects, the physical needs assessment, will establish that the housing cannot really effectively be remediated. So we're looking at trying to come up with an image of where do we go, not just to remedy the existing problem that we see now. That would be easy enough. You would simply say, hire a developer to give us an RFP and to take advantage of vouchers to rebuild the existing 52 family units at an estimated cost of probably $16 to $18 million. Those are the numbers we have gotten preliminarily as to what we ought to expect would be the cost. But that doesn't really meet the needs that we understand exist, and certainly doesn't position us to take advantage of what are the future needs of the community to try to maximize affordable housing in this community that is safe, decent, and meets and gives people upward mission. So we have two parts of this. And what we expect would be, as we proceed, a project that could easily be in north of $30 million in terms of total capital costs to reposition and rebuild the vision of what this housing authority can provide for really our residents who are most severely in need in this community. So we are looking at this in two pieces, and we're asking for funds that will help us leverage the ability to get to that bigger number, because the bigger number is going to come largely from the private sector, from the private housing, substantially, because that's really where we're going to go, one or more, through the various types of financing mechanisms that are available, which we have not worked out because we don't have that expertise at this time, but we have a pretty good sense of where we're going. And second, be able to do what housing authorities throughout this country do, well-performing housing authorities, which is to have facilities where individuals in the community, both our residents and others in need, can meet and get the resources that they need to have the tools to be successful. So that is what our program is. It's expensive. It's $650,000, but it's leveraging a much bigger sum of money. So the $150,000 of the $650 is what we're asking for to get us the consultants. And again, we could probably simply turn this over to a developer at this stage and say, replace what we have in kind. But we don't think that that serves the need of this community, because we think that there are greater opportunities, and there are much greater needs in this community than simply replacing 52 units in kind. And that's part of the process of trying to get some help through master planning and financial feasibility to understand how to do that. We're satisfied that right now we are uniquely positioned in terms of support from the Biden administration, from the state, and from private funding and low interest rates, that we are in a uniquely good time to try to rebuild the facilities, the housing, into something that really turns us into a new community, and to provide something that the town can say is added to its affordable housing stock. But more important, but also with this piece, we see the need to try to have some type of community center. It's not a big facility, but something where people can meet. And going back historically, I found through looking at records back in 2007, the then executive director of the Housing Authority went before the council at that time with a vision to have a new community center and rebuild the housing for these very purposes. And it unfortunately died. The needs haven't. So what we're looking at is saying, to build this community center, we don't think that's going to come from the private sector on funding of the housing, because they're going to look at the return on investment for housing. And there won't be any return on investment from the community center. So our image of vision of a community center is something that is open to residents of the town, be it the Guild to provide services, be it the Education Exchange, be it the faith community, be it Johnny Cake, be it a myriad of groups that want to come and support and work with our residents and other residents in need, but simply need a place to do it. So our position, while facially it's a lot of money, particularly with the amount of money that you have out here, it's $650,000. It's $500,000 that we are asking for a commitment that would be approximately what we estimate to be 25% of the cost of building a community center. It's $150,000 for our consultants to come back with a vision that is best for our community and best at meeting the needs in particular of the really residents in need that we serve. So that's our program. And we appreciate the opportunity. We understand you got a lot of challenges before you, and we appreciate your thinking, but this is an opportunity, a once in a life opportunity to leverage what we can do. I will note parenthetically, we haven't really worked through the details as to what extent this has to be done through our nonprofits, SKHA Services and Development Corp., which does not yet have 501c3 authorization. It's pending. We did create it earlier this year, or whether it's through the Housing Authority. We have some accounting issues with HUD and some other reasons why it may be better ultimately through our nonprofit, through the Housing Authority. And unfortunately, Councilmember Rose, the Housing Authority, you can't give you, we don't really take tax deductible contributions, and our other organization isn't tax exempt at this point. But we hope you'll give some consideration, because this really is a chance to really make a difference over the long term with this capital that's available from the funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Councilwoman Berger.
Thank you so much. I just had a tangential question. If you could just give us an update on the laundry, because I feel like we have you, and I just wanted to ask how that project is going.
It's going well. Construction is underway. The contractor sees no reason why they won't be finished by September 1. We see no reason why we can't finish the laundry within the budget and within that timetable.
Awesome. That makes me feel so much better. Thank you.
And thanks to the council for the support and the staff for the support with this grant, particularly with all the bumps that it's gone through.
Thank you, Chris. Other questions? Chris, you did mention, the new administration in Washington looks like it might be good for HUD. Is there the potential for significant amounts of federal funding to help in a project like this if the locality provides a match, or with the state as well? Or?
Well, there's nothing concrete. There are many proposals, and there seems to be a strong sense within in DC that public housing for too many years has been underfunded, and the need is more paramount today than ever. Now, how does that translate with the Congress that exists in terms of funding? We don't know, but certainly we would say that this is certainly a positive environment to be moving forward. And it's an opportunity that we certainly can't take. We need to take advantage of.
Okay, very good. As you've probably heard all night, this is going to be something of a process, but definitely appreciate having this vision out there before us. I think we're all aware of, the condition of your properties, and we need to do something. So
thank you.
Appreciate giving us a plan for that.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Southern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce, and I believe Joe Beely is here.
Hello, Joe.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Great, thank you. So first, a little bit of clarification, I think, on the category for the grant that we're requesting. Certainly, we're a nonprofit that has been negatively affected financially by COVID. So in some ways, it is a community grant, but my interpretation is that this is much more economic development related and potentially tourism related. So you're all familiar with what we do. I think we serve the business community. But things have really changed because of COVID. So a lot of our membership, I mean, it's hard to put a hard number on it. So a lot of our membership has either dropped or indicated that they need to drop because of the financial climate. Some of it, makes sense, and we couldn't save the membership. A larger company that had a representative in our area just said, we don't have a representative in that area anymore. It doesn't make sense for us to be members. That was clear and made sense. Any of the nonprofits certainly that came to us and said, look, we're challenged, we're not able to raise any money. We kept them on as members. We gave them full services. As a matter of fact, we gave them more services, COVID related. And we wanted that opportunity to still promote whenever the opportunity came up. We did the same for the for-profits. So we all know, for instance, retail and restaurants and accommodations were all severely impacted by COVID, certainly for at least the first 6 months, and some are still impacted. I mean, we had conversations with them when they said, I had one restaurant call me and say, I really want to pay my help. I'm just going to let my dues go for about a year. Our board made the decision to carry that member, and probably, I would say 15 to 20% of our membership, carry those members, give them full services, promote them when we can. So that's had an impact on our revenue to be able to provide the services. Also, the services that we provide now are much more expanded and actually much more specialized, right? So in the past, we would have a member reach out, say, I need this certain service, and we would find another member that could help them. We had to get very well versed in how to interact with the government and then advise these members. So this has created actually more impact on what we need to provide. And as a matter of fact, there's a plan in place for us to increase staffing here at a time when our revenue is, I want to be clear here. We're not severely impacted, but we haven't been able to do almost any of our fundraising events, our signature events, and that accounts for 1/3 of our budget. So that directly impacts. And I'll tell you, the way that we're making up the difference is that just staff is stepping up, and they're going above and beyond. We actually are in the process of starting an educational program for our members, in the areas of interacting with the government for grant applications. We helped so many people through the COVID grants, the government, federal, state grants. But we had to learn all that stuff, right? But the typical trainings that we would offer, but we're expanding, human resources, employee training and recruitment, cash management, investment, lending relationships with financial institutions. Those kinds of things. As far as a good news story, and this sort of will address, Jess, what you're asking everybody. We had 2 members come to us probably 3 or 4 months ago and said, look, my business, totally unsolicited, my business was not negatively impacted by COVID, and I'd like to write you a check for dues scholarships. You have a bunch of members who right now are challenged, to pay their annual dues. One member said to me, here's $2,000, and I want you to pay monthly dues for however many members this will help. If you've got, 50 members, do that until it runs out. And another member is pending. They've offered, and I know it will come. So the good news out of this is we also see, listen, I think we have such a strong business community. I've always felt this. They're not going to watch other businesses that are in trouble just flounder out there. They're going to help them when they can. So long story short, I think a little late for that, right? It is related much more to economic development, and tourism. This organization, I think, has always done a very good job. When you engage with a member, it's for their promotion. So any effort that we do, because again, it's a small staff, right? Any effort we do has to benefit the member. So we're pulling all that off, but it with the reduction in the ability to do our signature events, and with some members that are still on our rolls, we're still promoting them, we're still providing services, but we're not collecting the revenue. We're kind of happy to do that, but and especially now where we see the need that we need to sort of increase staff. Now, listen, if you see your way clear to help us increase our staffing, that's going to help us for a short time. That staff member is going to be here for years and years. And we know what we need to do under normal conditions to be able to afford that. I guess any questions? My application was fairly brief, but sort of touched on what I've talked about here. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Joe, a question, Councilman Rose.
Thanks, Joe. So approximately how many staff do you have serving approximately how many members?
So the membership is just under 600. And there are 2 full-time and 2 part-time.
That's impressive. Thank you.
It's a blast. We're having a blast.
Councilwoman Bergen.
Hi, Joe. Just a question. Is the annual membership for the chamber $2,000 or $285?
$285.
Okay.
The donation that we got was for $2,000.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. No, actually membership is $285. If you belong to any other business organization, there's a 20% discount. So if you belong to another chamber of commerce, it's $224. And then nonprofits are $199.
And that seems like a bargain. I got to tell you, I thought it was going to be a lot more to join. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right, very good. Any other questions for Joe? All right, Joe, thank you for your application. As you've heard, this will be quite a process, but we will eventually get around to letting you know.
Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for all the hard work. I've been paying attention. You guys are at it. Thank you.
Sure. All right.
Next, you have the Southern Rhode Island Volunteers, and I see Lindsay Tanner in the participant list representing.
Right. Lindsay, I think you are unmuted, so we can probably, oh, you just muted yourself. There we go. But we still can't hear you for some reason. I think.
Okay.
That's a little bit better. No, now you're muted. I think it was a microphone issue, maybe. Try speaking again.
So is that a little better?
A little bit better. If everybody maybe turns their speakers up.
Let me see if I can turn it up.
She's all the way up in my house.
Is that a little bit better?
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to say thank you to everyone for hearing all of us out. I also want to say thank you to all of the other organizations that are here tonight for doing everything they do for our community. So we put in our application for our grocery shopping program, which is an ongoing program. It's something we've been doing for a very long time. Through COVID, though, our clientele doubled, almost tripled. With the fear and the misinformation and the confusion for our seniors, they really didn't know what to do. They didn't know where to turn. So we have been at Belmont Market once a week for the past 3 months. Before that, it was twice a week since March of 2020. We were there twice a week. And we were serving about 250 seniors just through Belmont. And we also shop at the other grocery stores, Shaw's, Stop and Shop and all that. Just they're the big box companies, so we can't actually partner with them. They're not allowed to do the same thing that we can do at Belmont because it is a local grocery store. So we've been doing all of that, and it has been dwindling down to a more reasonable number now that everybody has been getting vaccinated and all that. But when we first started, our almost 500 volunteers went down to about 60 because everybody was quarantining and they were afraid and all that. So we had our 60 volunteers out there doing Meals on Wheels and the grocery shopping. We stopped our transportation program and our visitation program. Visitation was only calling. So nobody actually went to see anybody. They would just call instead of visiting. So we have a staff of 3. So all of the staff were at Belmont every week, both days. All of our board members were there. All of our committee members were doing everything they could to try and just make sure that our community was fed. So as we continue, we're still going to be doing the grocery shopping. We're still doing it every Thursday. We're still doing the medical transportation. We're getting back to the in-person visitation so that our seniors aren't isolated. We do serve all of Washington County, but our biggest group of clientele is definitely South Kingstown. It's almost 50% of our clientele. And before I forget to answer Councilwoman Rose's questions, you can go to our website, southernrival.org. You can send a check to our PO box, which is 1047 in Charlestown. Or you can stop by anytime you want. We're in Integrit Park. It's absolutely beautiful. We're on the 2nd floor. But our application really is about making sure that our seniors, especially those who are completely isolated, have food in their cupboards. They have somebody who's checking on them at least once a week, which we were calling every day in the beginning. Now it is just once a week, but just making sure that they are okay and they don't feel isolated and they're taken care of.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for all that work.
Thank you.
Questions from council? All right, you did a great job, Lindsay, presenting your case.
Thank you.
Questions from us.
I'm sure most of you already know who our organization is. We're here every year, so.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much to all of you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Next, you have Tri-Town Community Action Agency. Joseph DeSantis is the applicant. I don't see him in the attendee list, but there may be some, David Bano. Okay, he's here representing.
All right, David, you've been brought in. Yep, there you go.
Okay, just give me one sec. There we go. Start video. There we go. Much easier to see people. Thank you so much, first of all, for allowing me to speak. Mr. DeSantis couldn't make it. He had another meeting, but I'm the Special Projects Director for Tri-County. I submitted the request, so I can certainly fill you in on what we're looking for. Great news, first of all, is that I'm going to ask you to reduce what we asked you for by about 90% after hearing some information at the beginning of the meeting. We have a program funded through Rhode Island Housing. It's Rent Relief RI. I'm sure some of you have heard about it. It's about $200 million that the state of Rhode Island got to pay up to 15 months of past or forward-facing rent for folks who have a COVID issue to prevent eviction, as well as to pay up to 15 months of past due utilities so that they don't get shut off. Unfortunately, it's only for renters. Homeowners are completely shut out of that program. And so our original proposal, as you can see in front of you, our original proposal was to use some money from the town to help prevent foreclosures. We also work with Rhode Island Rent Relief with Rhode Island Housing in their mortgage reduction or mortgage restructuring program. That is a pretty successful program. About 70% of the people who ask for restructuring actually get it with the lender. And that actually eliminates their past due amount, so there's no foreclosure. Unfortunately, one of the biggest reasons someone is denied is because they owe property tax. And it's either escrowed into their payment and that's been depleted. And so the mortgage company won't move forward on the new agreement unless the client comes up with a bulk of property tax to get themselves up to even. We had proposed doing that. We were a little leery when we wrote it. And then after hearing that COVID, that this funding won't allow you to offset tax revenue, if I were you, I wouldn't even touch it. I mean, some auditor is going to say, no, it's a nice way around offsetting your tax revenue, forget it. So that was about 225,000 of the 250 we requested was to pay those property tax bills down to help clients not be foreclosed on. That leaves us with about 25,000 left for utility shutoffs to prevent those. Again, the Rent Relief RI program won't help homeowners. We'd like to target, use the same guidelines as far as area median income, income eligibility for homeowners, and to make sure they have a COVID issue that led to their loss of income to be able to help them not get shut off. Everyone hears about the eviction and foreclosure moratorium. Most people don't know that there was a utility shutoff moratorium, and that's about to end as well. So we've got a lot of clients who have gotten shut off notices. Fortunately, none of them have been shut off yet. So I think National Grid and others are still adhering to that moratorium. And also a lot of those folks are renters. So again, we've been able to help them through Rhode Island Rent Relief. We'd like to help homeowners. We think that we've paid bills of up to $10,000 for renters for past due utilities. We don't have that kind of money in this pot from what I'm hearing. So what we'd like to do is simply pay the 10 to 25% that National Grid requires for the client to get on the payment program. So if somebody owes $1,000 in past utilities, we can probably spend $250 to get them on a payment plan. Most of the folks that we're going to serve, those folks who have 30 to 50 or percent more of housing burdens, where they spend more than 50% of their income on their housing costs, they're not going to be able to come up with $200, $300, $400, $500 to pay that initial payment. But if we can make that payment for them and get them on a payment plan, at least we can prevent the shutoff. The good news about doing it that way is we don't need anything but your money. What I mean by that is I don't need staff, I don't need overhead, I don't need admin. Every dollar you give me will go right to clients to make sure that they don't get shut off. We'll run it right out of our emergency services department. We have an office right on Kingstown Road in South Kingston and Wakefield. But honestly, we don't even need to see the client. We've been doing this for so many years that the client can call us, send us a deed, or send us your mortgage statement so we see that you own the house, send us your electric or even a picture of your bill, take it on your cell phone and text it to me. As long as I can get that account number, I can call Carlos at National Grid, get your full amount and set the plan up for you. We tell National Grid we're paying $500 and they stop right there and they set up a payment plan with the client. We've been doing it with them forever. And so that's it. I mean, we said in the proposal 25,000 would serve 50. That's the low number. That's assuming everyone has a $2,000 bill and needs $500. But again, usually it comes out to, you can think about it, for every 10 grand you get, every 10,000 you give us, probably 25, 30 homeowners will be able to keep them from getting shut off. So entirely up to you what you want to fund us with. We'll take 5, we'll take 25, we'll take whatever you want. Like I said, it's all going to go right to the clients anyway. And that's pretty much the gist of it. We can do it all. Like I said, we don't need the money up front. We can bill you out. Just let us know up to how much we can spend, because National Grid will wait for us. They'll take our word for it and not shut off. One other thing I would like to mention is if there's some, I thought I heard if there's a way to get a list, because I heard a few folks speak that were looking for, I thought they were looking for rent or future rent or security for folks that were had COVID issues and domestic violence. Our Rhode Island Rent Relief Program will pay security deposit and will pay up to 12 months forward rent. So if you have folks that are renters and are trying to get into an apartment, and as long as they have a COVID issue or their domestic violence, which is usually an overrider for everything, we can probably help them get into a new apartment. And that's all I have. Again, thank you so much. I don't know if you have any questions, or am I the first person who's asked for less money today? I think so.
Remarkable. So yeah, thank you, David. Any questions from councilmen? Councilwoman Rose?
I just have a comment. I think that, the way that you've presented this and come at this is kind of what I was hoping to get out of this whole night, to see, what programs can work collaboratively, how people can look for funding in other ways. So I appreciate everything that you just shared.
Great.
It was just really cool to hear all of that come together. So thank you.
And I'd be happy. I know you said there was going to be a separate deadline. Rather than the 3-page, I'd be happy to refine what we just said so that it's more clear and you can, just the utility piece. And so we'll resubmit that for you. But again, thank you.
Thank you, David. And hopefully we can put David in touch with Mary Rhoda.
Mary, that's who it was. Mary.
Domestic Violence Resource Center there.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, and that rent relief program we do for the entire Washington County. We can do the whole state, so it doesn't matter if you're in a different area than South Kingston. Although the money we ask for you, we'll make sure is only South Kingston residents.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, who's next, Terry?
Next, we have Joe Patrick from the VFW Post 916.
All right, Tiger, you just need to unmute yourself. There.
Hi, everybody. Am I coming across?
Very good.
No, apparently not.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. So first, I just want to say, as this is my 3rd year coming before you all, I'm always towards the end of the line. And I got to tell you, I get emotional listening to all the other programs that are presenting. Having worked with Lindsay and the volunteers, Jess, you helped with that, and so did you, Deb. We experienced quite a year here, kind of a thing. And so I don't want to compete against anybody as a VFW guy, but here we are. But there's some really good stuff that was thrown at you today, and I'm really proud of our community for how much we've all stepped up together, kind of a thing during this COVID. And so here I am again, the commander at the VFW, and what we're looking for is just a little help. This year scared the heck out of us and the leadership at our post, because we weren't able to raise any money other than the grants that we received from Narragansett or South Kingstown initially because of COVID. We have Poppy Drive stuff that we do and all of that, and the demand or the need, not to use the word demand, from veterans needing help never goes away. And it's been exacerbated this year with COVID. I was a little terrified, and if we didn't do that 300,000 poppy making drive that we did, that our community jumped in, I'm not sure how we would have made it. And so what I'm asking for today is something that we've been working on, and that is going pure solar and just taking us off the grid in the sense where most of our utilities, our heating and electric, is taken care of through solar power. We would be the first one in New England, a VFW post to do that. And the number is about $78,000 that you see there. And they're both local companies that we're working with. And we started working on this just as COVID was kicking in. It's something I've been working on because there's no one here that gets paid. We're an all volunteer organization, and we're all service oriented towards our veteran and veteran families. And every dollar we raise goes back to veterans, except for about a third of it, which pays our bills. And it would be so great to not have to carry that weight. And this past year, without having the ability to hold a wedding here or, you know, someone's birthday, bar mitzvah, you know, that sort of a thing, which helps pay our bills, it put us at risk. We were at risk. And so I'd like to relieve this situation from future VFW organizations in front, you know, the leadership teams coming after me. I'm not going to be here forever, but I'd like to be, but it's important. We do a lot of work. Some of the numbers that I sent to you, I mentioned that we are involved with now being VSO office, well, Veteran Service Office. And so we now every 2 weeks, we have a VSO visit from a person whose job it is to basically advocate for veterans and listen to them and help them navigate the VA system, which is very complicated and changes almost weekly. Rhode Island is one of 2 states that doesn't have a dedicated, by legislation, VSO service through the state. It's kind of funded through the VA. It's like a whole little tricky thing that you have to run through. And so we're the frontline VSO organization here for Washington County. And so we went from barely having calls during pre-COVID about getting veteran services to a lot, where we felt the need that we would need to have somebody here manning the phones almost, not 24/7, but 9 to 5. Anyway, we're being impactful. And the whole COVID situation really exacerbated the need that was out there. And I'm just proud to be part of the posse that stood up today from South Kingstown to tell you their story of what we went through this year. And we're looking to keep going forward. And so if there's any questions, I think I messed up, which isn't a surprise. I put our request down as a infrastructure thing or utility thing, and maybe that doesn't meet your criteria. But it's all about not having to pay utilities, so we can put all monies that we raise through grant and donations back into servicing our veterans. And so if there's any questions, or if I need to answer some more stuff, I'm here.
Thanks, Tiger. Councilwoman Burton.
Thank you, Abel. I know this proposal came in late and I'm just not able to open it. And I don't know if it's just, you know, human error on my end, or is anybody else having the same issue? You are too? Yeah.
I emailed it. I mean, I just hit send or whatever through the town site. So, but if there's a chance that I could have messed it up, it probably happened. So just know that.
No solar for you. Move on. Just kidding. It's an interesting proposal. I can't see it, so I can only listen, but I'm furiously trying to solve my own problem here. But just curious, have you already done all the specs on the solar part, or is it?
Oh yeah, we started working on this last year because right now we spend about 1/3 of our income is spent on utilities. And usually that is covered if we have dances and things, you know, here during the course and events kind of a thing. But we're too busy now serving veterans to be able to do that. And none of that is revenue making. It's not, which is, we're just here helping veterans kind of a thing. And so we don't have the luxury of offering a Saturday or 2 a month for events So this would just be a major help to us to provide the services to the 2,000 plus veterans that are paying taxes or have tax relief through Washington County and Narragansett, South Kingstown, and Charlestown. It's over 2,000. I think it's like 2,100 is the number of veteran and veteran families who declare or get a tax relief based on military service.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Rose.
Hey, Tiger. First of all, congratulations on the Purple Heart Trail. Super exciting. I've seen you walking up and down, so that's great. Thank you for doing that. I think you sort of answered one of my questions in your response to Councilwoman Bergner. I was going to ask about events being held there. I live right across from the VFW, and I've never thought to have an event there. So it sounds like that's not sort of in the works right now to be doing stuff like that.
It's hard to, because we do have we have some interventional stuff that's sort of where we have veterans come here with their family and with some professional staff, and it kind of happens. And for instance, like today, there was a situation, a mental crisis kind of a thing. COVID has caused a lot of stuff that probably we may not experience again, but from my experience, I want this to be a safe house and a safe place for a veteran to come and kind of work through a situation. And so that's kind of a big deal. I can talk to you offline about, more particulars, but it would be great to be able to offer, having all of weddings and all of that stuff here, but we don't have the parking, one, and two, that's not what we do anymore. We're not a place that we're here to help and service veterans and their families. And the COVID really exposed the need. People who never think to call us because they're not a combat veteran, calling us, do you know how we can get help doing, paying for my oil, that sort of a thing. And so we point them, and now we have every 2 weeks, we have classes. I'm in VSO boot camp right now. Every 2 weeks, I'm sitting here and learning how to triage new veterans coming, looking to get some assistance through the VA. And that's huge because there's nothing between Connecticut line and Providence until you get to the VA center. So that's what we're here for.
So it sounds like the purpose has sort of shifted due
Agree.
COVID, yeah. So that being said, what other ways can people donate? I know you guys have even a PayPal or a Venmo, right?
Yeah.
For stuff. So how can people donate to you now?
I'm really bad about the donation thing. I don't know how to. Okay, so we do have a webpage, which is vfwri.org, which is our homepage. And I think there is a place on there for that. We can buy decals for the Purple Heart Trail through the Chamber of Commerce with Joe Vielle, who is the man. I love that guy. As far as supporting us in that capacity too. Well, we typically get people just mailing checks here at 155 High Street, Wakefield, Rhode Island, 02879. That's really been our bread and butter lately.
Any other questions for Tiger? All right. Very good. Thank you for coming tonight. It's always a joy to see you and keep up the good work.
Next, you have the Wakefield Village Association, and Ken Burke is here.
All right, Kenny, you are ready to go. If you want to show yourself, you can hit that little video camera.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present to the council. I have to admit that we didn't have a lot of time to put together a complete proposal. So let me back into this. As most of you know, the Wakefield Village Association is fundamentally a community organization, mostly, well, we're all volunteers. Nobody takes a paycheck with our group, but it's centered around the businesses along the historic Main Street area in Wakefield, but it also extends outward. We have a ton of volunteers that help put on, plan, break down all of our community events. Most recently being our first River Fire event, co-sponsored with a wonderful Pride event this past Thursday, but also other community events such as the Endless Summer, Oktoberfest, Halloween Stroll, Wakefield Winter Wonderland, etc. We have a proposal that supplements, we think, our current town activities, but they also coincide with some of the events that we do in and around Main Street, the Saugatucket River, and downtown Wakefield. We did ask for a total of $500,000. I literally plucked that one out of the air. And if I could just go from the top down, the lion's share of this request is actually something we consider a town obligation, and that would be the repair restoration of the municipal parking lots flanking the Saugatuck River Bridge. The one that's in most need right now is the one we call the Bell Block lot. It's pretty much flat as a pancake. It's broken up. The stormwater runs directly into a kind of a makeshift storm water retention basin that was installed a few years ago, and then into the river. This is an area that is heavily used by pedestrians and visitors to our River Fire events and our other larger events. And the theme that we have here is to continue to draw people outside, as this grant application had indicated. What are the harms of COVID and the pandemic? Well, we were all quarantined. Both residents had a significant impact on the businesses. The effects, psychological, physical, lack of exercise, and then certainly financial along the businesses on Main Street. So our attempt is to draw a sharper focus to the Main Street area, the Saugatucket River area. And when the town is ready to do this parking lot over again, we feel this would be a great opportunity to bring some enhanced stormwater controls to the area, as well as better pedestrian movement along the riverfront. And again, out of a $500,000 Access Act grant request, that's $462,000. Another item that we had asked for is a small bicycle repair station. We've asked for this in the past. There's been other grant programs, the Main Street grant program through the Commerce Corporation. Again, the theme is simply to enhance outdoor activities as an alternate to being locked up inside either voluntarily or otherwise. That's a small amount. It's about $3,000. We did want to co-locate that system with some wayfinding. So I had heard somebody earlier from another historic district in Kingston also talk about wayfinding. We'd like to understand what their intent is and perhaps collaborate. This doesn't have to be an item that the WVA needs to be a lead on, but we see a ton of activity on the bike path at the Comfort Station, and we think it'd be a wonderful opportunity to help direct people when they come off the bike path and spread north and south on Main Street. We did have, let's see, 4 other small items. One of them is the River Fire Basket Replacement Program. You may know that back in the day, River Fires started out literally as 55-gallon drums that were cut in half and welded with a handle on the bottom. And we elevated that with assistance from South County Steel in West Kingston, literally a meeting at the Muse and a cocktail napkin, and the folks in that shop were able to come up with the design that we have today. So we had raised some private funds. We also worked with the town council to secure some funds. I believe we had a legislative grant, and we were able to procure all the river fire baskets that have been in service for, I think about 6 years now. We want to start a rotation program to start phasing them out, or at least the brassiers, the steel pieces. So we've asked for about $5,000 to start that process to keep the river fire program going in perpetuity. We fund all of the staffing that goes into making sure the folks keep the river fires going. We pay for all the cleanup in the area and all of the firewood, so we're not asking for that piece. We did also want to consider some river fire seeding. And again, I know there's a theme of many nonprofits and other groups coming together to look at similar items. We are working with the EDC for, on the other side of the pond, some improvements to Saugatucket River Park. So perhaps this item, we're carrying about $3,500. We wanted some sturdy Adirondack chairs to place out so people could recreate outside along the Saugatucket River. We had contemplated 2 other items. One of them is community event stage and production equipment. We regularly stick build our own stages. We also work with the Contemporary Theater to use their stage. We're starting to pull in bigger groups, and we also work with the Recreation Department, and when it's available, we borrow their stage decking. So what we've contemplated is $25,000 to basically buy the same type of stage equipment that the town has. This could be something that we host and maintain, or perhaps the town rec department does. The idea is that we have a community-based set of stage and production equipment, some lighting. So I've got some proposals for staging, lighting, railings, and some stairs. It's about $25,000. But the intent there is that if we use this equipment maybe 6 times out of the year, there are plenty of other nonprofits in the town that also host events that could also use that equipment. And lastly, Saugatucket River Enhanced Access. I know there's a new group of Friends of the Saugatucket River. There is a natural kayak access area where we have our river fire location. And there's just a rollout map. It's a very eco-friendly type of system. It's used on shoreline access areas all throughout the country. It's only about $800. We figured this could be something where we could enhance the public access to the Saugatucket River. And that's fundamentally the request from the WVA. Our website is wakefieldvillageassociation.com. However, I would encourage anybody that likes to make a donation to come out to the river fire and bring a food donation so that it all goes to the Johnny Cake Center's food bank. That's it.
Great, thanks. Questions? I do think you're right, Kenny. There's a lot of overlap between some of these proposals and even what has been suggested by just sort of municipal spending of ARP fund. So I think a lot of this stuff probably is going to get funded. I'm not sure it'll come through this community grant process, but it is good to know that there are so many different groups that are really focused on this area and really improving the Saugatucket Park. And I think it is it's a big step for economic development in the downtown area.
Agreed.
Who's next?
Next, we have 3 organizations, the Washington County Coalition for Children, the Johnny Cake Center for Hope, and Domestic Violence Resource Center of South County. And I believe Robert Hicks is here to represent this proposal.
I'm here, right?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I just want to begin by complimenting and commending the town council. As you've heard from other people, there are not other communities out there doing this, reaching out finding out what ideas the community has and listening to them. So first, my great thanks to you for stepping up and doing that. Our proposal is a little bit different from the others. It's not about doing X, Y, and Z, but more about capacity building in response to COVID and recovering from COVID. And so I'd like to, if I could, rather than share the details of what's, and I sent you, but talk about how the coalition and the Domestic Violence Resource Center and the Johnny Cake Center came to be at the point where we submitted this proposal. It began several years ago with our work in mental health first aid and in training first responders, police, school personnel. We realized that was helpful, but it didn't touch the scope and the scale of what communities were dealing with. Between opioids and domestic violence, racial justice, poverty, and now with COVID, there was just a tremendous amount that was preventing progress from taking place. That led the coalition to its look at adverse childhood experiences and the research about that and how that impacts people, how you come back from that with developing resilience and the ability of communities to overcome those problems. And that took us to look around the country to how different places were doing that. In Washington State, they embraced that and they developed a model, the self-healing communities model. Originally, they embraced that. Part of it was, how do we reach out and empower our Native American community to respond to the negative outcomes that they were having? And it grew into juvenile justice, remade their housing, schools change, and quite a bit of just empowering communities to design their own changes, rather than coming in and saying, this is what we're going to do for you, to empower communities to understand trauma, how that holds people back, what impacts that has, and how do we develop resilience. We found examples of people implementing the self-healing communities models all across the country. Crow County, Minnesota, Cloverdale, California, South Bend, Indiana, Omaha, Nebraska are examples of ambitious efforts. And several states, most notably New Jersey and Michigan, have embraced this and dedicated millions to it on a statewide effort to really empower communities to understand and to develop their own solutions to problems. We found in many ways Rhode Island was somewhat unique in not having organized statewide effort to do that. And our proposal is that South Kingstown lead the state in doing that. We have the opportunity to be the leader to show Rhode Island how it can be done, and to really respond to everything that has happened with COVID, the concerns that we have about housing, about domestic violence, about opioids, about inequity in school outcomes, to really work to develop the capacity of underserved communities to develop their own solutions. Now, in our proposal are the details about how that works and what we would like to do. And I know it's late and you've been at this a long time, and I thank you for hanging in there, but I'd be glad to answer questions.
You bet.
Oh, washcokids.org. Not only donate, but more importantly, become a member and join. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that was quite all right. Any questions for Bob? You did, mention how South Kingstown can lead, but this really seems like an initiative that's tailor-made for a regional sort of application. I would say, opioid abuse doesn't end at our borders here locally.
Yep.
So is this a program that we would hope to sort of partner with neighboring towns
Absolutely. I think schools are important partners in this as well. Other projects have involved healthcare providers, insurance companies, hospitals, juvenile justice. We are also developing a proposal for the Rhode Island Foundation for the statewide proposal as well. You have reached out, and South Kingstown has been a community that has led the way, and so that is why we are coming to speak with you to see if we can spark your interest.
Thank you. This actually does sort of spark an idea in my head. You know, like I wonder how other of our neighboring communities are approaching these ARP funds, and really maybe they just haven't considered reaching out to local nonprofits. And I wonder if it would be possible for us to excuse me, draft some type of letter that would go out to our neighbors, where we could talk about the process that we've gone through and maybe encourage. I mean, obviously we don't want to tell our neighbors how to do their jobs, but it would be nice if the whole region was sort of pulling in the same direction at the same time. And if we could facilitate that, that would be great.
I would expect the coalition would reach out to any Washington County community that was open to it.
Other questions for Bob? Or... Okay, Bob, sounds like a great, really interesting program. I'm gonna dig into it a little bit more. I wanna understand.
Thank you very much.
So that is the last organization that was on the proposal list. However, there may be others in the attendee list that did not have an opportunity to submit something, but if the council would like to hear them.
Yeah, is anybody who is watching the meeting right now here to represent an organization that submitted an application? Patricia Harmon. All right, Patricia, you just need to unmute yourself.
Hi, our organization has not submitted an application yet. I put my hand up before you finished asking.
No worries, that's all right. What organization are you representing?
I'm a volunteer with Neighbors Helping Neighbors Rhode Island, NHNRI, and I want to thank you for the support that the council has given us in the past. Here I am. I've only found out about this opportunity this afternoon at about 3:30. Then I rushed back from dinner with friends so that I could sit in and see. Neighbors Helping Neighbors Rhode Island is an all-volunteer organization, like several others that are here, that our primary mission is to keep homeowners in their homes, low-income homeowners, by providing essential housing repairs. And we use volunteer. We have no paid staff. We use teams of volunteers. Our funding is all from private donations. We do have a couple of small corporate grants, and then we do appeal to the towns that we service. We service every town in Washington County, and COVID has severely impacted us because it's certainly made our fundraising much more difficult than our outreach programs. It's also created a backlog of people who are waiting on repairs for their home because it wasn't safe to bring our volunteers inside people's homes to do repairs. And yet the people needed to stay there and stay safe. So for a while we only did outside, and we're now getting caught up with doing some of the inside repairs again. So I was tuning in to see if it was too late to apply. It may not be, although I can see that you certainly have lots of demands on the funding that is available. But COVID has certainly impacted our ability to fundraise. In fact, we did lose our volunteer. Normally you see Susan Jakewith at these meetings, and I'm standing in for her. We did have a volunteer executive director who is no longer able to continue. So we're kind of in an interim place right now, which is why we didn't get the information until today. But if you will accept a proposal, I'd be more than delighted to send one in. Basically, all of our funding goes to services and materials primarily to do the repairs. In some cases, if the repairs are very complex and beyond the skills of our volunteers, we will hire a contractor. Some of them give us good rates, and every once in a while, one will donate a small job for us. So that makes the dollars go farther, which is wonderful. And our funding comes from the towns, the community grants, and private fundraising. I'm happy to answer questions, and I feel like I'm not entirely as well organized as I'd like to be to do a real presentation here, but I just wanted to see if I could send in a proposal.
Patricia, I think you did a great job. And yes, you can still send in a proposal. And in fact, I think everybody who has come before you tonight who has already submitted a proposal, eventually we're going to get to a much more rigorous application process when we've, really laid out this sort of supplemental budget that sort of designates these ARP funds. So really feel free to put in one of these initial applications through the form that's available on the website.
Okay.
But yeah, keep in mind that as we move forward, it's going to get a little more complex. And tonight's discussion is really, so yeah, tonight we're trying to get a feel for how much money, do we need to make available for community organizations. Once we know that, then we'll set up that further application process. So you're not behind the 8 ball or anything. You plenty of time.
Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Bergner, you had a question?
You disappeared. You coming back?
I don't know.
Oh no. This is the organization that we doubled their request for in the budget, right? They were asking for 2 and we asked for 4. My question, if she's still here, is that if we fund a grant to this your organization again, it's easy for you to just target South Kingstown, right? I know you,
yes.
Right?
Yes, it absolutely is.
So, I mean, I have a super soft spot for your organization.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful of you to give us more than we asked for.
I think we gave you twice what you asked for. So yes, I know that all of us sort of feel like you do a great job keeping people in their homes longer and doing the little things that people can't necessarily get to. So right. I just hope that you will submit it and focusing on South Kingstown. I think it's going to make it more appealing to the funds that we would be giving out.
It would be easy to focus them on South Kingstown residents. And we found with deferred maintenance and some of the things, some of the jobs are really big, and I hate it when everyone hates it when we can just kind of have to do a patch up job instead. And I say that because everything we do is up to code, but sometimes we can repair a roof, but they really ought to have a new one. How do we want to divide up the money? So thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you do.
Oh, our pleasure. Thank you.
And one other thing that might come as welcome news, which is this is actually sort of your organization is another one where there's a bit of overlap with what we've discussed in terms of funding with other ARP monies just coming directly through the town rather than going through this community grant process. We've talked about, Terry, would you remind me about the amount of funding we had discussed?
Yes, so through the category of negative economic impact associated with households and nonprofits, the town had recommended $100,000 for elderly home repair grants or low and moderate income residents?
All of our residents do, they are homeowners and they do fall into low income guidelines. Some of them are elderly, some of them are not, some are disabled. If I submit the proposal, would it be better to do it under the community, or will you then decide, well, this belongs more in housing?
I think we'll probably determine that as we sort of go along. I'm
Okay.
going to rely on town staff, of course, recommendations. It might be easier just to have it go straight through the town, to be honest, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay, thank you. I'll send it in and, you know, go from there.
Yes, appreciate it. And Councilwoman Rose, do you have a question?
Just if someone were to want to donate to your organization tonight,
NHNRI.org, or we also happily receive checks at P.O. Box. Let me make sure I get the number right here. P.O. Box 406 in Charlestown, 02813. That's NHNRI.org, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, Rhode Island.org. We've got, you just push there and donate. It's wonderful. We even have recurring donors, which is fabulous when they send us a little something every month. Thank you for asking.
thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
So we will keep you posted, Patricia. Is there anybody else attending tonight who's here to discuss a community grant opportunity? All right, and so tonight is not the end of the line for this whole discussion. Please, you know, we've had a great discussion so far, but we do want to hear from more organizations out there doing great work. Feel free to, did we hear from the Rhode Island Food Policy Council? Or I think Nessa Richmond just joined if you want to.
That and Chris Simpson.
Okay.
Chris.
We didn't hear from him, but
Oh yeah, no.
I don't know if he's here.
All right, Nessa, you have been brought into our meeting here. There you are.
Hi.
Welcome.
There.
Glad.
Yeah, have to give thanks to my neighbor for reminding me that the meeting was happening right now. So I have not been participating up to this point, and I'm not quite sure what you want to hear about the proposal, or if you had any specific questions about it.
Well, yeah, why don't you give us an executive summary type of what the funding would be used?
Sure. I guess I can introduce myself in 10 seconds. I'm Nessa Richmond, South Kingstown resident, and also the network director of the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, which is a statewide kind of network-based organization of food system stakeholders. So farmers and ranchers, as well as food business owners and food access advocates, that sort of thing. So this proposal relates to food waste and the cost that the town pays to kind of in tipping fees to the residential municipal landfill. We do research on cost to every town for tipping fees for their residential food waste each year. And so this is an estimate that's based on actual, you know, costs that are assigned to the town by the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation. And it's over $77,000 a year that they estimate. This is, I think, from 2018, this estimate. So it seemed to me that a good use for funding could be to have a program to help reduce the amount of tipping fees that we're paying by reducing the amount of food waste that's going into plastic bags and then to the landfill, and instead composting that waste. You know, Earth Care Farm is one place that does commercial composting, and I did a little analysis of their tipping fees versus the tipping fees for the landfill, and noted that at Earth Care Farm, it's $55 a ton. At the Rhode Island Resource Recovery, it's $47 a ton. So not a huge difference, but there is some difference. And then I worked up an estimate for what it would take to really integrate a residential food waste program for the town, which would also include, buckets, which aren't technically needed. You can use anything to collect your compost, but it's helpful for education to have buckets with instructions on them. A staff to run a program, and a truck if needed. I wasn't sure if the town already had a truck that could do this type of pickup. And then some funding for educational matter and online programming. And the good thing about a program like this, investing in it, is that although there are some upfront costs, there are also some savings to the town. And so over time, if the program is kept up, you would be chipping away at those costs, as in terms of the savings that you would get, depending on how many people are with the program and collecting their food waste. That's why the education piece is so critical. So I provided a few fact sheets, and I know that there are other places that have probably different tipping fees for compost. Earth Care was just the one I thought of because it's local. But there are other places that may have different tipping fees for food waste.
Thank you, Nessa. That I think helps clarify. So a couple things occur to me. One is I think that this is a probably bigger topic than necessarily the ARP funds, because ARP funds are sort of targeted to impacts of the COVID crisis in particular. So we certainly want to deal with, waste stream, being more sustainable in town. This is a great topic for our sustainability committee to handle. So if they aren't already on it, I would love to send you in their direction, because I know there are also, I think, grant opportunities to help municipalities create composting programs. I
know there's a program through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank that does climate resilience infrastructure grants, and not too many of those have addressed composting or other food systems issues directly, but there's no reason that they can't, because this is a climate issue.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that, if we were going to try and spend ARP funds on a composting initiative, that would be the only way we could sort of tie it in. I think there is like a carve out for resilience, climate work, but it might not be as sort of in the wheelhouse of these ARP designations as some of these other issues that we've had raised before us tonight. But I would love to help this conversation continue with the Sustainability Committee if I can be of any assistance with that.
Okay, yeah, I'd be happy to be pointed in their direction, and appreciate the opportunity to present. If you have any other questions about any of the data or anything, I'm happy to provide that, and I'd be happy to continue the conversation and even help with an application to the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank if the town hasn't already participated in that municipal infrastructure resilience program that they've got.
Yeah, I have not heard of us applying for that yet. Other questions for Nessa? All right. Well, thank you for joining us here right at the end and letting us know about the work of the Food Policy Council and this composting potential.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
And okay, is there anyone else remaining who would like to speak about a community grant opportunity? All right, very good. Well, we have reached the end of our list. Of course, there were a number of people who couldn't join us tonight to talk about their proposals. We will still certainly give those consideration. As we've talked about all night, this is really just the beginning of our process in terms of these community grants, and really in terms of these ARP funds. We're getting to the end of our work sessions. We are hoping to have a very detailed budget that we can all vote on the 26th, but even that could potentially be pushed farther out if it turns out that there's more information that we need before we can comfortably do that. So please keep the applications coming, and we look forward to continuing this conversation. Councilman McEntee?
Terry, I just have a few questions on the process moving forward. So we've set a deadline for receiving additional applications from outside agencies of the Wednesday prior to July 26th. But it sounded like, is that correct?
That was discussed just at the beginning of this work session. Yep.
Okay. But, and now it also sounds like at some point we'd like to identify a rough estimate of the amount for which we'd like to appropriate toward outside agencies and then do an additional round of applications. Is that correct as well?
Yes, the idea is that the council will need to come up with a total amount for dispersing to outside agencies. And then at that point, once the budget has been set in terms of how the council wants to identify expenditure of the entire 9 million, 8.95 million that's coming to the town, then a process will take place for formal applications for the funding that the council has set for these grants.
Okay, a few more questions. It sounds to me that it's going to be very difficult to enact a supplemental budget on July 26th if we're receiving applications on the Wednesday prior. Wouldn't we want to have presentations by those additional applicants we haven't received yet?
That's a possibility if we do receive more applications, that the council may have to consider further funding requests. And what I envision happening after tonight is that staff will need to go through all of these proposals, take into consideration what the council has heard tonight, and prioritize, and also identify the certain categories that these funds might fall under. For example, there's overlap in existing programs that have already been presented to the council. So that has to be taken into consideration. And then the council's response to these proposals this evening as well. Council will need to respond to and provide guidance to staff on their thoughts about this, because we can certainly propose something and a recommendation, but if there's already ideas that the council has with regard to this, then we would want to seek the council's input prior to the public hearing on the 26th, so that a recommendation can be presented or options that the council can consider.
Okay, and recommendations would be based on the applications we've received up till today and the additional through June 21, the Wednesday prior to, or sorry, July 21, the Wednesday prior to July 26. I'm just trying to sort of get the logistics down here, because if we're receiving additional applications up till July 21, and then we're trying to get a recommendation by you and your staff to have a public hearing on July 26th, but we're also talking about doing another round of I guess applications for outside agencies to apply for with an amount that we've determined to appropriate toward those. Am I understanding this right?
The second round, you've got to establish the amount for funding for community grants on July 26th. Going forward, then there needs to be a round of applications, formalized applications from these interested agencies to apply for this funding and spell out how it will meet the criteria that's in the regulatory requirements of the American Rescue Plan funding. So this is not the final application period. These are proposals that will help the council determine how much money do you really want to put into the community service grant bucket. Once we know that, because you're not, I don't think you'll be considering a total of $4.1 million for community service grants for the entire budget for the American Rescue Plan funds.
So when we enact the supplemental budget, will we have to identify the exact amount toward the appropriate or every individual outside agency?
No, you.
Oh, we
you
won't
are-
have to. Okay.
You are choosing an amount that will fall into that available grant funding category for these agencies to then come back and apply for, because there will be a more stringent application process going forward. Tonight was an opportunity for you to hear what the community organizations are seeking. In other words, the number of agencies out there that have interest and believe that they have a reason for seeking grant funding based on the impact that COVID has had in the community and their particular service that they provide.
So final supplemental budget adoption will just identify the amount of the appropriation toward outside agency, and then at a time supplement or subsequent to that, we'll identify how to spend it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It will be a grant application process for that particular funding bucket.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rose?
Yeah, just to follow up on what Rory just said. So just to be very clear, it's not a second round of applications. It's taking the applications that we receive up until the 21st and then asking them to give a almost like line item type
That's correct.
proposal of what they will do with the money.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any final questions tonight? It is 9 o'clock now. I want to just say thank you for everybody who has come tonight to present, but also everybody here still in the meeting, and for the great questions and for this conversation. As always, some of the most interesting and heartwarming meetings of the year when we get to see our outside agencies come in and tell us about the good work they want to do and have been doing. So very pleased to hear that tonight. With that, I guess we can be done for the night. We're getting later. So, Councilwoman Rose.
I just wanted to take a quick second and say happy birthday, Council President Collins.
Thank you for reminding me. I had forgotten. I'll be celebrating on July 4th, I suppose. All right. Well, have a good night, everybody. And we'll see you the next time.